Admiral Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Defender watching the stars through the massive viewport. The silence of space always calmed him before big decisions. Today would bring the biggest decision humanity had ever faced. His communication officer turned toward him with wide eyes. "Sir, we have incoming vessels on long-range sensors. 4 different ship designs, all massive in size." Jake walked to the sensor station and studied the readings. The ships were unlike anything in human records. Each vessel was the size of a city, their hulls gleaming with unknown metals and energy patterns. His tactical officer Lisa Brooks moved beside him, her face pale as she read the data. "Admiral, they are requesting communication on all frequencies. The message is being broadcast in perfect English." Jake nodded slowly. After decades of searching the galaxy, humanity had finally found other intelligent life. The timing felt wrong. Though, these ships appeared at the edge of human space without any warning, almost as if they had been watching and waiting. "Put them through to the main screen." The viewport flickered and changed to show 4 figures standing together. Each was completely different from the others. The first looked like living crystal, its body reflecting light in strange patterns. The second appeared to be made of swirling gas held in a vaguely humanoid shape. The third resembled a giant insect with multiple arms and compound eyes. The fourth looked like it belonged in the ocean, with gills and fins adapted for water breathing. The crystal being spoke first, its voice somehow musical despite having no visible mouth. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We are the hegemony rulers of this galaxy. I am Vorthak Prime, speaking for the crystalline Vorthak people." The gas creature spoke next, its voice like wind through caves. "I am Nethrim Voice, representing the Nethrim collective consciousness." The insect being clicked and buzzed before words formed. "Zephyrin Hivemind speaks through this unit." "We are the Zephyrins." The aquatic being gurgled before speaking in fluid tones. "The Kelthara depths send greetings through me, Kelthara Deep Current." Jake stepped forward, trying to project confidence he did not feel. "I am Admiral Jake Martinez, commanding the human fleet in this sector. Welcome to human space." Vorthak Prime's crystalline form shifted, reflecting light in what might have been amusement. "Human space is a temporary designation. We have come to offer humanity a choice. Join the hegemony willingly or face the consequences of resistance." "Lisa." Brooks moved to stand beside Jake, her diplomatic training taking over. "What exactly does joining the hegemony mean for humanity?" The 4 beings exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of information between them. Nethrim Voice answered, its gaseous form swirling faster. "Humanity has spread across 43 star systems in less than 2 centuries. This expansion rate threatens galactic stability. You must accept population controls, territorial limits, and technology restrictions." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "And if we refuse?" Zephyrin Hivemind's compound eyes fixed on him with predatory focus. 12 species have faced this choice before you. All eventually chose wisdom over destruction. The hegemony has maintained peace for over 10,000 years. Commander Ryan Clark entered the bridge carrying a datapad. He had been monitoring communications from the bridge during the entire conversation. His expression was grim as he approached Jake. "Admiral, we are detecting energy signatures around several of our outer colonies. The patterns match what we are seeing from these ships." Jake turned back to the alien representatives. "You have been watching us." Kelthara Deep Current's fins fluttered, perhaps the equivalent of a nod. "Observation is necessary before first contact. We have studied your species for 67 of your years. Humanity shows dangerous tendencies toward rapid expansion and technological development." The conversation continued for another hour, with the aliens presenting their terms in greater detail. Humanity would be allowed to keep 15 star systems, with strict population caps on each world. All military vessels above a certain size would be surrendered. Most importantly, humanity would share all technological advances with the hegemony. Before implementing them, Lisa Brooks asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What happens to the humans who refuse to accept these terms? The four beings spoke in unison, their combined voices creating an eerie harmony. Those who threaten galactic stability must be removed for the greater good. After the communication ended, Jake called his senior staff to the briefing room. Ryan Clark presented his intelligence findings, showing energy readings and ship movements that suggested the hegemony had been positioning forces around human space for months. They have been preparing for this moment, Ryan explained. These are not peace negotiations. This is conquest disguised as diplomacy. Captain Amy Foster, Jake's best pilot, studied the tactical data. Their ships are massive, but that might work against them. Big ships are harder to maneuver, and they seem to move in very organized patterns. Lisa Brooks shook her head. The bigger concern is their technology level. They have been spacefaring for thousands of years while we have barely left our solar system 2 centuries ago. Jake looked around the table at his officers. Each face showed the same mixture of fear and determination. They all understood that humanity faced its greatest challenge. The aliens had made their intentions clear despite their diplomatic language. Send a message to Earth Command, Jake ordered. Tell them we need every available ship moved to defensive positions. These aliens are not here to negotiate. They are here to conquer. As his officers left to carry out their orders, Jake remained in the briefing room staring at the tactical display. The hegemony ships continued to hold position just outside human space, waiting for humanity's answer. He knew that whatever decision Earth made, it would determine the survival of the human species. The stars outside the viewport seemed colder now, filled with threats instead of possibilities. Humanity had always dreamed of meeting other intelligent life among the stars. Now that dream had become a nightmare that would test everything humans believed about themselves and their place in the galaxy. 3 months had passed since the hegemony's first contact with humanity. The negotiations dragged on in meeting rooms across Earth while tensions grew higher each day. Secretary of Defense Paul Newman sat in his private office reading classified reports about the alien technology demonstrations. The hegemony had shown their power by easily destroying several asteroids with weapons that made human nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. Paul closed the file and rubbed his tired eyes. The politicians wanted to keep talking, but Paul knew military reality when he saw it. Humanity could not win a war against the hegemony. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced. Their ships outnumbered the human fleet by 50 to 1. Every tactical analysis came to the same conclusion. Resistance meant extinction. His secure communication device chimed with an incoming message from General Carl Bishop, the head of military intelligence. The message was brief but clear. Emergency. Meeting tonight. Bring only trusted personnel. Location 7. Location 7 was a safe house in the mountains outside Washington, D.C. Paul had used it before for sensitive meetings that could not happen in official buildings. He drove there alone, wondering what emergency Carl had discovered. The safe house was a simple cabin that looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, Paul found 5 other people waiting in the main room. Besides Carl Bishop, there was Senator Janet Mills from the Defense Committee, Dr. Helen Carter from the Xenobiology Research Team, Admiral Roy Davis from the Pacific Fleet, and Director Susan Wright from the Central Intelligence Agency. Carl Bishop stood at the head of the table, his face grave. Thank you all for coming. We need to discuss the reality of our situation with the hegemony. Senator Mills spoke first. The negotiations are going nowhere. They refuse to compromise on any of their demands. Dr. Carter nodded agreement. I have been studying their technology samples. They are at least 3,000 years ahead of us in every field. Their materials science alone makes our best efforts look primitive. Admiral Davis leaned forward. My analysis shows they have enough firepower to destroy every human world in less than a week. Our defenses would not slow them down. Paul felt the weight of these words. Everyone in the room understood what they meant. Carl Bishop continued the discussion with careful words. We need to consider all options for humanity's survival. Sometimes the best choice is not the most popular choice. Susan Wright from the CIA spoke quietly. You're talking about surrender, Carl nodded slowly. I am talking about survival. Dead heroes cannot protect their families. The room fell silent as each person considered the implications. Paul thought about his own children and grandchildren. What kind of future would they have under hegemony rule versus no future at all? Dr. Carter broke the silence. The hegemony has ruled 12 other species for thousands of years. Those species still exist. They have adapted to life under alien rule. Senator Mills looked uncomfortable. The public would never accept surrender without a fight. Carl Bishop walked to the window and stared out at the dark forest. The public does not need to know about our discussions. We can present this as a strategic negotiation for better terms. Over the next hour, the group discussed how they could secretly work with the hegemony to arrange humanity's peaceful surrender. They would present it as a diplomatic victory, claiming they had negotiated better terms than the aliens originally offered. Paul felt sick about what they were planning, but he could not argue with the logic. Humanity faced extinction if they fought. At least under hegemony rule, some humans would survive. The group decided to call themselves the Covenant Committee. They would work in secret to establish back-channel communications with the hegemony. Dr. Carter would use her access to alien technology to learn more about their capabilities. Admiral Davis would identify which human military officers might be sympathetic to their cause. 2 weeks later, Dr. Carter made her first discovery. The hegemony weapons were specifically designed to target human DNA and neural patterns. They had been studying humanity long enough to create weapons that would be devastatingly effective against human biology. She tried to schedule a meeting with Admiral Martinez to report this finding, but her request was denied. When she tried to send a message through official channels, the message was intercepted and deleted. Dr. Carter realized that the Covenant Committee was monitoring all communications related to hegemony research. She had become a prisoner of her own colleagues. Meanwhile, Carl Bishop had established direct communication with hegemony representatives. They were pleased to work with humans who understood the reality of their situation. The aliens promised that cooperative humans would be given positions of authority in the new galactic order. The hegemony provided detailed intelligence requirements about human military capabilities, colony locations, and defensive systems. They claimed this information would help them plan a peaceful occupation with minimal casualties. Lieutenant Commander Steve Rogers, a communications officer assigned to Admiral Martinez's staff, noticed unusual encrypted transmissions coming from Earth Command. The encryption was not standard military protocol, and the transmission patterns suggested coordination with external sources. Steve brought his concerns to Captain Amy Foster, who had been growing suspicious about the delays in military preparations. Earth Command kept delaying defensive improvements and troop movements that Admiral Martinez had requested. Captain Foster decided to investigate further. She assigned trusted personnel to monitor all communications from Earth Command. Within days, they discovered evidence of the secret negotiations. The betrayal was worse than they had imagined. Human leaders were not just surrendering to the hegemony. They were actively helping the aliens plan humanity's conquest. The Covenant Committee had provided detailed star charts, military codes, and intelligence about human weaknesses. Steve Rogers prepared a full report for Admiral Martinez, but he knew the information was too sensitive to send through normal channels. The Covenant Committee had infiltrated too many levels of human government. Captain Foster made the decision to carry the intelligence personally to Admiral Martinez. As she prepared to leave Earth orbit, she wondered how many other humans were involved in the betrayal and whether there was still time to save humanity from its own leaders. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Jake Martinez was reviewing defensive positions when alarms began screaming throughout the USS Defender. His tactical officer Lisa Brooks spun around from her console, her face pale with shock. Admiral, we have massive energy signatures appearing across 17 human colonies simultaneously. The readings match hegemony weapon systems. Jake rushed to the main display screen as reports flooded in from across human space. Colony after colony was under attack by overwhelming alien forces. The strikes were perfectly coordinated, hitting every major population center and military installation at exactly the same time. How did they get past our early warning systems? Jake demanded. Commander Ryan Clark worked frantically at his intelligence station. So they knew exactly where to strike, every defensive position, every military base, every civilian evacuation route. They have detailed intelligence about all our installations. The horrible truth began to sink in. The hegemony had not just been watching humanity from a distance. Someone had been feeding them information about human defenses, colony locations, and military capabilities. The betrayal was complete. Captain Amy Foster burst onto the bridge carrying a datapad with urgent intelligence. Admiral, I have proof that human leaders have been working with the hegemony. The Covenant Committee has been providing them with everything they need to destroy us. Jake took the datapad and quickly read the intercepted communications. His anger grew with each page. General Carl Bishop, Secretary of Defense Paul Newman, and others had been secretly negotiating humanity's surrender while pretending to prepare for defense. They thought they were saving humanity by giving up without a fight, Amy explained. The hegemony promised them positions of power in exchange for cooperation. Another alarm sounded as the Mars colonies came under direct attack. The Red Planets. 3 million inhabitants were trapped as hegemony ships surrounded their cities. Jake watched helplessly as the alien vessels began their assault. All ships move to intercept the Mars attack force, Jake ordered. We cannot let them destroy our colonies without a fight. The USS Defender led a formation of 60 human vessels toward Mars. It was a pitiful force compared to the hundreds of hegemony ships attacking the planet. But Jake refused to abandon human civilians. As they approached Mars, the true horror of the situation became clear. The hegemony was not just attacking military targets. They were systematically destroying civilian areas, hospitals, schools, and residential districts. Millions of people were dying while the aliens tested their new weapons on human populations, Lisa Brooks coordinated the defense while trying to evacuate as many civilians as possible. We have transport ships loading refugees from the southern colonies, but the hegemony is targeting the evacuation routes. Jake realized they were fighting a losing battle. The hegemony had too many ships, too much firepower, and too much intelligence about human defenses. Every move the human fleet made was anticipated and countered. Sir, incoming transmission from the hegemony command ship. The communications officer reported. The main screen showed Vorthik Prime, the crystalline alien leader. His form pulsed with colors that might have indicated satisfaction. Admiral Martinez, you are witnessing the price of resistance. Your leaders promise cooperation, but some humans still choose defiance. Each act of resistance costs more human lives. Jake stepped forward, his voice filled with controlled rage. You are murdering innocent civilians. This is not war. This is genocide. The alien's crystalline form shifted, reflecting light in patterns that seemed almost amused. We are implementing the will of your own leaders. The Covenant Committee requested that we demonstrate the consequences of resistance to convince stubborn military officers. The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at the screen in shock. The human traitors had not just provided intelligence to the enemy. They had specifically requested that the hegemony attack human colonies to prove their point about the futility of resistance. Commander Ryan Clark had been monitoring enemy communications during the battle. Admiral, I am detecting a new type of weapon being deployed. The energy signature is unlike anything we have seen before. The weapon appeared as a blue energy field that expanded from the hegemony ships like a growing bubble. When it reached the human defenders, something terrible happened. The human crews simply stopped responding to commands. Their ships drifted helplessly in space while the crews remained alive but completely unresponsive. It is some kind of neural suppression field, Amy Foster reported from her fighter squadron. The weapon is shutting down human brain function without killing them. Jake realized this was the ultimate betrayal. The Covenant Committee had provided the hegemony with detailed information about human biology and brain function. The aliens had used that knowledge to develop weapons specifically designed to incapacitate humans without permanent harm. They wanted to capture humanity alive, not destroy them. The human species would survive, but as helpless prisoners of their alien conquerors. More colonies fell as the neural suppression weapons spread across human space. Jake watched 17 worlds go silent in the span of 6 hours. Billions of humans were now under alien control, their minds shut down by weapons created using human scientific knowledge. Admiral, we are receiving surrender demands from 14. More human commanders, Lisa Brooks reported. They are seeing what happened to the Mars Defense Force. Jake made the hardest decision of his military career. Order all remaining ships to fall back to the Sol system. We cannot save the outer colonies, but we can make a stand at Earth. As the human fleet retreated toward Earth, Jake received a priority message from the surface. General Carl Bishop was demanding that Jake surrender the fleet to avoid further casualties. The message included video footage of the captured colonies, showing millions of humans alive but completely helpless under alien control. This is what you are fighting for, Bishop's message concluded. Dead heroes cannot protect their families, but living humans can adapt and survive under new leadership. Jake deleted the message without responding. He understood now that the real enemy was not just the hegemony. Humanity was being destroyed by its own leaders, who had chosen slavery over the risk of extinction. The USS Defender led the remaining human ships toward Earth for what would certainly be humanity's final battle. Behind them, 17 human colonies lay under alien occupation, their populations alive but enslaved by weapons designed with human knowledge and deployed with human assistance. The remnants of the human fleet gathered around Earth like wounded animals seeking shelter. Admiral Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Defender counting the ships that had survived the retreat from the outer colonies. 200 vessels remained from the original fleet of over 2,000. Each ship carried refugees, wounded soldiers, and the bitter knowledge that humanity had been betrayed by its own leaders. Earth looked peaceful from space, but Jake knew it was an illusion. The planet buzzed with frantic activity as military forces prepared for the final battle. Every orbital defense platform had been activated, every missile battery loaded, and every fighter squadron prepared for launch. It would not be enough. Commander Ryan Clark approached with a tablet showing the latest intelligence reports. Sir, hegemony forces are massing at the edge of the solar system. We count over 5,000 ships of various classes. They will be here within 48 hours. Jake studied the numbers and felt the weight of impossible odds. The human fleet was outnumbered 25 to 1, and that was before considering the technological advantages of the enemy. The neural suppression weapons alone could disable the entire human fleet without firing a single conventional shot. Any word from the surface about the Covenant Committee? Jake asked. Ryan's expression darkened. General Bishop is still demanding that we surrender the fleet? He claims the hegemony has agreed to spare Earth's population if we stop resisting. Jake deleted the message without reading it. He had learned not to trust anything from the human traitors who had caused this disaster. Their promises meant nothing when weighed against the millions of humans already enslaved in the occupied colonies. A new ship appeared on the sensors approaching from the direction of the asteroid belt. It was broadcasting human identification codes, but moving in an unusual pattern that suggested damage or mechanical problems. Jake ordered the ship brought into the main hangar bay under heavy guard. The airlock opened to reveal Dr. Helen Carter, the xenobiologist who had disappeared 3 months earlier. She looked exhausted and frightened, but her eyes burned with determination. 2 security officers escorted her to the bridge where Jake waited with his senior staff. Admiral, I have critical information about the hegemony's weaknesses, she said immediately. I escaped from their research facility after studying their technology from the inside. Jake gestured for her to continue. Any advantage, no matter how small, might help in the coming battle. The hegemony species operate through collective consciousness networks, Dr. Carter explained. Each individual is connected to their entire species through quantum neural links. They think and act as unified minds, which makes them incredibly coordinated but also vulnerable. Captain Amy Foster leaned forward with interest. Vulnerable how? Dr. Carter activated a holographic display showing complex neural patterns. I have developed a quantum virus that can disrupt their collective consciousness. If we can upload it into their command networks, it will sever the connections between individual aliens and their species' minds. Lisa Brooks studied the technical specifications. What would happen to them if their collective consciousness is disrupted? They would become individuals for the first time in millions of years, Dr. Carter replied. The psychological shock would be devastating. They would not know how to think or act independently. Jake felt the first spark of hope he had experienced in months. What do you need to deploy this virus? Dr. Carter's expression grew serious. We need to get close enough to their command ships to upload the virus directly into their main computer systems. The quantum encryption cannot be transmitted over long distances. The implications were clear. Someone would have to fly directly into the heart of the hegemony fleet and get close enough to their command vessels to upload the virus. It would be a suicide mission with almost no chance of survival. I volunteer to lead the mission, Amy Foster said without hesitation. Jake shook his head. I cannot ask you to do that. This is my responsibility as fleet commander. With respect, Admiral, you are needed here to coordinate the defense. I am the best pilot in the fleet, and my fighter squadron knows how to operate in hostile environments. Dr. Carter worked with the engineering teams to modify Amy's fighter with the quantum virus upload system. The process required specialized equipment that would make the ship slower and more vulnerable, but it was the only way to get close enough to the hegemony command vessels. As the modifications were completed, Jake received an unexpected communication. From Earth's surface. It was not from the Covenant Committee or any government official. Instead, it came from civilian leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens who had learned about the betrayal. Admiral Martinez, we know what the Covenant Committee has done, the message began. We want you to know that they do not speak for humanity. We would rather die free than live as slaves. Similar messages arrived from around the world. Factory workers, teachers, students, and retirees all sent the same message. Fight to the end rather than surrender to alien rule. The human spirit had not been broken by the betrayal of their leaders. Jake felt renewed determination as he prepared for the final battle. The Covenant Committee had tried to surrender humanity without a fight, but the human people had chosen to resist. Even knowing they would probably die, they preferred death to slavery. The hegemony fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system exactly on schedule. Their ships moved in perfect formation, each vessel precisely positioned in relation to the others. It was an impressive display of the collective consciousness that Dr. Carter had described. All ships, this is Admiral Martinez, Jake announced over the fleet communication system. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but we are not defeated. Today we fight not just for our own survival, but for the future of human freedom. The first phase of the battle would be a conventional engagement to draw the hegemony into close combat. Amy Foster's strike team would wait for the perfect moment to begin their infiltration mission. Success depended on timing, luck, and the hope that Dr. Carter's quantum virus would work as designed. Jake watched the enemy fleet approach Earth and felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The next few hours would determine whether humans would remain free or become the 13th species to fall under hegemony control. The betrayal had brought humanity to the edge of extinction, but it had also revealed the true strength of the human spirit. They would fight to the end, no matter what the cost. The battle for Earth began at dawn on a clear morning that would have been perfect for a peaceful day. Admiral Jake Martinez watched from the bridge of the USS Defender as the massive hegemony fleet approached the outer edge of Earth's defensive perimeter. 5,000 alien ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the confidence of certain victory. All ships, engage at maximum range, Jake commanded over the fleet communication system. Make them fight for every kilometer of space. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness between Earth and Mars. Human missiles and energy weapons struck the advancing hegemony vessels, but the damage was minimal. The alien ships absorbed the attacks easily while returning fire with devastating effect. Within minutes, 12 human ships were destroyed or disabled. Captain Amy Foster led her fighter squadron in a daring attack against the hegemony's left flank. Her modified fighter carried Dr. Carter's quantum virus, but she needed to get much closer to the enemy command ships to upload it. The mission required perfect timing and a massive distraction. Admiral, the hegemony is deploying neural suppression. Fields, Commander Ryan Clark reported from his station. 3 more of our ships have gone silent. Jake watched helplessly as the crews of the affected vessels stopped responding to communications. The ships drifted in space with their crews alive but completely incapacitated. It was exactly what had happened to the outer colonies, and it proved that the hegemony intended to capture humanity alive rather than destroy them. The alien fleet continued its steady advance toward Earth. Human defenders fought desperately, but their weapons seemed to barely scratch the enemy hulls. The technological gap was too great to overcome through conventional warfare. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the hegemony command ship," the communications officer announced. The main screen showed the 4 alien leaders, standing together in their crystalline command chamber. Vorthek Prime spoke first, his voice carrying the same musical quality as during their first meeting. "Admiral Martinez, you have fought bravely but uselessly. Surrender now, and we will spare your crews the neural suppression treatment." Jake stepped forward, his voice filled with defiance. "Humanity does not surrender to tyrants." Nethram voice, the gaseous alien, swirled faster as it responded. "Your own leaders have already surrendered. The Covenant Committee has provided us with complete intelligence about your defenses. This battle serves no purpose." "Then you do not understand humans," Jake replied. "We fight not because we can win, but because freedom is worth dying for." The transmission ended, and the hegemony resumed their attack with increased intensity. Jake realized they were no longer trying to capture human ships intact. The aliens had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to survive even as slaves. Amy Foster's fighter squadron weaved through the battle, avoiding the main engagement while moving toward the hegemony command vessels. The quantum virus upload system made her ship slower and less maneuverable, but she had to get within 1 kilometer of the enemy flagship to transmit the virus. "Admiral, I am detecting something unusual in the hegemony formation," Lisa Brooks reported from her tactical station. "Some of their ships are firing on each other." Jake studied the tactical display and saw what she meant. Several hegemony vessels had broken formation and were attacking their own allies. The damage was minimal, but it was the first sign of confusion in the enemy ranks. Dr. Carter, who had been monitoring the battle from the science station, looked up with excitement. "The quantum virus is already working?" "I uploaded a preliminary version into their communication networks during my escape. It is spreading slowly through their fleet." The battle continued for another hour with the hegemony slowly pushing toward Earth. Human casualties mounted steadily while the alien fleet seemed unstoppable. Jake began to wonder if the quantum virus would work quickly enough to save humanity. Then, something extraordinary happened. Commander Ryan Clark noticed it first while monitoring enemy communications. "Sir, the hegemony ships are starting to operate independently. They are no longer moving in perfect coordination." Jake watched the tactical display as the alien formation began to break apart. Individual ships started making decisions without consulting the collective consciousness. Some vessels continued attacking while others hesitated or moved in unexpected directions. Amy Foster seized the moment of confusion and pushed her fighter toward the hegemony command ship. Enemy fire was less coordinated now, allowing her to slip through defenses that would have been impossible to penetrate before. "Upload beginning now," she reported over the communication system. "I need 30 seconds to complete the transmission." The quantum virus uploaded directly into the hegemony's main command network. Dr. Carter watched her instruments as the virus spread through the alien fleets. communication systems like wildfire. The collective consciousness that had bound the four species together for millennia began to collapse. Individual aliens throughout the fleet suddenly found themselves thinking independent thoughts for the first time in their existence. The psychological shock was exactly what Dr. Carter had predicted. Thousands of alien minds that had always been part of a larger whole were suddenly alone with their own thoughts. "Admiral, look at this," Lisa Brooks called out from her station. "The hegemony ships are attacking each other." The alien fleet descended into chaos as the four species turned on each other. Vorthek crystalline ships began firing on Nethrim gas vessels. Zephyrin insect ships attacked Kelthra aquatic cruisers. The careful coordination that had made them unstoppable was replaced by confusion and panic. Jake realized this was humanity's moment. All ships, advance and engage. Target the largest enemy vessels first. The human fleet, though still vastly outnumbered, began pushing forward into the chaos of the disintegrating hegemony formation. Ships that had seemed invincible were now vulnerable as their crews struggled to function without the collective consciousness that had guided them for thousands of years. Amy Foster's mission was complete, but the battle was far from over. The quantum virus had given humanity a chance, but they still had to fight their way through thousands of confused and frightened alien vessels to achieve victory. The hegemony fleet was tearing itself apart. Admiral Jake Martinez watched from the bridge of the USS Defender as thousands of alien ships that had operated in perfect harmony for millennia turned their weapons on each other. The quantum virus had spread through their collective consciousness networks faster than Dr. Carter had predicted, severing the psychic bonds that held four species together as one unified force. Vorthek crystalline ships fired their energy weapons at Nethrim gas vessels, turning the gaseous beings into scattered particles. Zephyrin insect cruisers used their cutting beams to slice through Kelthra aquatic ships, spilling their water-filled hulls into the vacuum of space. The careful coordination that had made them unstoppable was replaced by chaos and panic. "Admiral, we are receiving hundreds of distress signals from the hegemony fleet," Commander Ryan Clark reported. "They are requesting medical assistance and asking for explanations about what is happening to them." Jake felt no sympathy for the aliens who had tried to enslave humanity. "Ignore their requests. Focus all fire on the largest enemy vessels." The human fleet pushed forward into the confused mass of alien ships. Captain Amy Foster led her fighter squadron in devastating attacks against hegemony command vessels whose crews were too confused to mount effective defenses. Ships that had seemed invincible hours before were now sitting targets for human weapons. Dr. Carter monitored the quantum virus spread from her science station. The collective consciousness networks are completely collapsed. Individual aliens are experiencing independent thought for the first time in their evolutionary history. The psychological trauma is severe. Lisa Brooks coordinated the human advance from her tactical station. "Sir, we have destroyed over 2,000 enemy vessels. The remaining ships are fleeing in random directions." Jake could hardly believe what he was seeing. The massive hegemony fleet that had seemed unstoppable was now broken and scattered. Some ships were still fighting each other, while others drifted helplessly in space as their crews struggled to function without the collective consciousness that had guided them for thousands of years. "All ships, pursue the fleeing vessels," Jake ordered. "We cannot allow them to regroup and threaten humanity again." The battle continued for another 6 hours as human forces hunted down the scattered remnants of the hegemony fleet. The aliens had no experience with independent decision-making, and their attempts to coordinate defenses failed repeatedly. Ships that tried to work together often ended up attacking each other instead. The final hegemony command ship, a massive crystalline vessel that had carried Vorthek Prime, was surrounded by human fighters. The alien leader appeared on the communication screen one last time, his crystalline form flickering with unstable energy patterns. "You have destroyed us," Vorthek Prime said, his musical voice now discordant and broken. "We cannot exist as individuals. Our species will die without the collective consciousness." Jake felt no pity for the alien who had tried to enslave humanity. You should have thought of that before you invaded human space. The transmission ended and the Hegemony command ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. With their leader gone, the remaining alien vessels scattered across the galaxy in complete disarray. The immediate threat was over, but Jake knew the work was just beginning. The quantum virus had freed the 17 human colonies from hegemony control, but millions of humans were still recovering from the neural suppression weapons. Medical teams would need months to help the affected populations return to normal function. More importantly, the betrayal by the Covenant Committee had to be addressed. Jake ordered the arrest of General Carl Bishop, Secretary of Defense Paul Newman, and the other human leaders who had worked with the aliens. They would face trial for treason and the deaths of millions of human civilians. Dr. Carter made another important discovery while studying the abandoned hegemony technology. Admiral, the quantum virus did more than just disrupt their collective consciousness. It freed dozens of other species that had been absorbed by the hegemony over the millennia. Jake read her report with growing amazement. The collapse of the hegemony's collective consciousness had liberated entire civilizations that had been conquered and absorbed over thousands of years. Species that had been forced to think and act as part of the hegemony were now free to rediscover their own identities. "We are receiving communications from across the galaxy," Ryan Clark reported. 43 different species are thanking humanity for their liberation. They want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. The irony was not lost on Jake. The Covenant Committee had tried to save humanity through surrender, but their betrayal had instead led to the liberation of dozens of species across the galaxy. The neural suppression weapons and detailed intelligence they had provided to the hegemony had been turned against the aliens themselves. Captain Amy Foster was promoted to Admiral for her courage in completing the quantum virus mission. Dr. Carter was appointed as the head of the new Galactic Relations Department, responsible for establishing contact with the liberated species. The trials of the Covenant Committee members lasted for months. General Bishop maintained until the end that he had been trying to save humanity from extinction. The courts found him guilty of treason and sentenced him to life imprisonment. The other committee members received similar sentences. Jake was promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, responsible for defending humanity's expanded role in galactic affairs. The human fleet was rebuilt with technology recovered from the hegemony ships, making it one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The story of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other species to resist tyranny and fight for their freedom. The humans, who had been considered primitive and backward by the hegemony, became the founders of a new galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. Years later, Jake would often think about the betrayal that had nearly destroyed humanity. The Covenant Committee had believed that surrender was the only path to survival, but they had been wrong. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or military might, but their refusal to give up their freedom no matter what the cost. The galaxy was now a very different place. Where once the hegemony had ruled through fear and collective consciousness, dozens of independent species worked together as equals. The betrayal that had brought humanity to the edge of extinction had instead made them the catalyst for the greatest liberation in galactic history. Captain Foster, now Admiral Foster, led exploration missions to the far reaches of the galaxy, discovering new species and establishing peaceful relations. The human spirit that had refused to surrender to the hegemony continued to inspire others to fight for their own freedom and independence.